Desiree, your turn, and then Melanie.
Hello, everyone. I'm Desiree Beekharry from Desiree Beekharry Coaching. I'm a return to work coach, and I help women who have several digital online accounts and assets. I run an online course called 21st Century Digital Estate Planning. It costs $386. And the people who buy it are women who have multiple accounts, for example, on social media or investment accounts and with multiple passwords.
Excellent. Well done. Thank you, Desiree. All right. Moving on. So yes, if you haven't put your contact details in the chat, now's your chance. I'm just going to set up my screen here for our speaker. So give me a moment and you guys just pop your details in the chat. Add that. So you can't see what I'm doing from your end, but it works beautifully at my end. I know what I'm doing. Although that's a little debatable, isn't it? All right, here we go. Every week at Business at Breakfast, one of the members gets the opportunity to share with the group further insights into their business or enlighten the group a little bit more about themselves. The members can use the time to problem solve or seek assistance or advice from the group as a collective. The time is theirs to use however they would like. Today, we have the wonderful Desiree Beekharry, who's going to tell us more about her 21st Century Digital Estate Planning courses. So just a quick background on Desiree. Desiree is from Adelaide, and she's dedicated to empowering women and helping them find their mojo, self-esteem and confidence in the return to workforce after a career break or following life's challenges. The aim is not only to get their foot in the door, but to walk through it with confidence. Now, the interesting thing with what Desiree does, while she helps women get into the workforce, she's discovered along the way that, all these women that are going back out into work, we've got accounts for everything. I mean, every woman does, but she's noticing more and more accounts, more online accounts, more passwords are needed. What happens if anything happens to that person? Who's in charge of the account? So it had Desiree start to look into what actually happens when someone gets incredibly ill and can't do their own, say, banking or get into their Facebook or do something. Or what happens when someone dies? Who has access to those accounts and who's allowed to have those passwords? So from there, a 21st century digital estate planning course came about. So Desiree, take it away. You've got up to 8 minutes to tell us more about what it is that you do. If you take 8 minutes or longer, I'm just going to do this at times so that then you can just wrap it up. If it's less than 8 minutes, we just have more time for questions. With that, you can take it away.
Thanks, Misty, and thank you for the opportunity, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Desiree Beekharry from Desiree Beekharry Coaching, and I'm a return to work coach, and I help women who have multiple online accounts, social media and investment accounts with multiple passwords. I run an online course which is called 21st Century Digital Estate Planning, and it costs 386 Australian dollars. The people who buy this course are women who do have multiple accounts, social media, investment accounts, online banking, business accounts, websites, and have multiple passwords. How this came about is, Misty mentioned earlier on, is that in my coaching practice, by coaching the women who are returning to work for different reasons, women whose husband may have passed away, women going through separation or divorce, women whose kids are now in full-time education, empty nesters, new migrants to the country. In helping them, I noticed that they struggled because there was a lot of overwhelm in starting a job, because that's, if they haven't worked for some time, it is overwhelming. They had to do a lot of online training. They needed to use a whole bunch of new software. And for all of those things that they did, then they were working online more and more. And the more you work online, the more passwords you require. For example, to study anything online, that they needed passwords. To access websites or to own a website, they needed password. To start a business, they need a password. To access any kind of social media, they knew that any woman, any person would need a password. And we know that everything that you do online these days requires passwords, but more importantly, they require two-factor authentication, which is done through your email or via your mobile phone, both of which require passwords. So do you ever think about what happens if you're not able to actually access those accounts, and these are accounts that have that value? And what would happen if you got seriously sick, or if you died unexpectedly without having put in all these things in place? When we know that all the online accounts that we have, in any account we have online or not, must be accessible to us. But to whom else should have access to this? In my process of helping women back into the workforce, I noted that more and more women were having this challenge with their digital assets, digital online accounts. Their husbands passed away. There was some problem because their partners became very sick and they had to manage everything that was going on at home, especially the money side, which many did not do because they left it to their partners. And more as this was happening, when it was causing a lot of chaos and dilemma and strife for these people, I decided to create this online account. I did a lot of research and I realized that this was necessary. So I went ahead and created this online course. And I believe in it so much because, let's face it, the majority of us have a lot of online accounts. The average Australian has 300 online accounts and growing. And we don't really know what to do with all these passwords, and assume that if something were to happen to us, our next of kin will have it. Well, no, they won't. And the only way you can pass on your digital accounts, passwords, etc., is if you include your information and you name an executor as part of a digital asset clause in your will. And that applies to most countries. You go to your wills and estate lawyer to do your will or update your will. He will ask you, possibly, would you like to include a digital asset clause in your will? You'll say, yes, please. But then he won't have time to explain how that works and how long it takes and how to prepare it. He'll send you home and he'll say, come back when you're ready to give me over the stuff. The problem is most people don't go back because they have no idea how to begin to do this thing, to put into their digital asset clause and include it as part of their will. The repercussions of this happening is, for example, with a friend of mine who I know, whose business partner, a lawyer even, had died under very traumatic circumstances. And many months later, the Facebook feed kept coming up with information about this person who died tragically. The thing is, this person died tragically early at the age of 42, but the wife could not shut off that Facebook account. And the trauma, was reliving the trauma of the way that person passed away, died, was killed, and the fact that they couldn't actually shut down that account. It took 8 months and a lot of money to actually get an in memoriam from Facebook. If you cannot access the two-factor authentication via phone or email because the accounts have been shut down, these accounts are lost permanently, no matter how much money and who you are. Scammers, who seem to be aware of your life more than you are, will know that a person has died and will clean out those accounts before you have a chance to say Bob's your uncle. And there's very little you can do about it. If there's any unusual activity on an account, for example, you're trying to crack the code, guess the code, whatever, after 3 or so efforts, these accounts will be blocked. And unless you are the executor of the account or of the online account or a beneficiary and named for the digital accounts, there is no way you can ever access any money that's online. That brings me to the end of my talk. Thank you for your attention.
Excellent. Well done. Thank you so much, Desiree.
You-
Yes, I do. I do often wonder. See, I have no passwords or anything on my phone. I say to the boys, you know, the reason I don't, one is I don't put my bank details in there. So you can't tap and go. So you can't use my phone for anything, really. I mean, you can access my emails, but you really can't use my phone for anything much, right? I said, if I was to pass out somewhere and it's going for a walk and I was to pass out somewhere, I want someone to get into my phone so that they can, you know, call someone and say, oh my God, this person, we don't know who they are. I don't carry ID when I'm walking the dogs. But I do wonder about, you know, all these phones. I know with Simon's, I think if anything happened to him, I'd have to chop off a finger and take an eyeball in order to access anything of his. Because I think there's that much security that sits behind most people's stuff. And I do get I get a little bit concerned about that actually. Um, does anyone have any questions for Desiree? How long does the course take to do online? Desiree?
2 hours.
2 hours? Okay. Yep. Debbie, I saw your hand up.
Do a lot of women, are they like surprised to figure out that they can't get into the information if they don't have a, you know, the passcode?
Yes, and they do. They work it out when they're grieving. They work it out when it's time to act. They work it out, sadly, at the time when they should be focusing on their well-being, their grief, their health, and they're completely traumatized by it and overwhelmed that no one else can help them, and they spend a lot of money. And yes,
But
they
if they have all the passwords, they can easily get in and access anything they need.
the passwords, it depends when they use it. I mean, yes, they could do that.
Okay. Thank
It's
you.
interesting though, you won't necessarily, it's interesting to know how many accounts someone actually has. A friend of mine, her mother-in-law is now in a home. She's starting to get dementia, or she's been getting dementia for quite some time. And so her son who's an accountant, he's a math genius person, right? So he does all of her accounts and everything like that. And he can't get a tax return done on his mum's stuff properly to have everything updated because the dad who died years and years and years and years earlier had shares, and because he can't say where the shares came from, because he can't access any of that information, and he can't ask his dad where the shares came from and when how much they were bought at the time, so they can't tell how much they are, you know, how much have they increased and things like that. For years he's not been able to do a tax return because the tax officer said, but we need this information, and nobody seems to know how to get hold of any of it. So there's nothing.
Aside from the fact that if you access somebody's account online after they die, it's fraud.
Yes. So yeah, and he can't. Yes, can't
And
access
if you,
any of this.
if you need two-factor authentication and you've shut down the phone and all the accounts, you cannot access those. They're blocked forever.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So
You can try it after death, and you can also be arrested for fraud. Doesn't
yeah,
matter who you are.
yeah,
I-
it's quite an interesting process.
Yeah, I was going to say too. Oh, sorry, Jeff, you had your hand up. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
No, go, Melanie, and
Oh,
then
I was
I'll get
just going to say, I think the other thing that's really interesting about this sort of online safety aspect is that I think a lot of people tend to use the same passwords over and over and over again, right? And so, you know, that makes you really vulnerable if you get hacked, even on and I think we saw it in Australia during Christmas. So hackers going to really like accounts that don't really mean anything to you, like you've ordered something one-off, but they're getting that password and then that's giving them access to your life. So I think that's important for people to be aware of, which then leads to the problem that Desiree's really pointing out here, because I know I've been really full on about it in the last couple of years, where I'm actually using the sort of some of the suggested passwords and I'm putting it into my password safe. But if you're doing that, you've got no chance of recording, and you know, you've got to sort of have it in these, you know, repositories, I suppose. And I mean, I'm just listening to you and I feel quite anxious. Like, if I'm honest, I feel anxious about the fact that not only, because also thinking about we're all in business and I'm a solopreneur, and you know, not only does Facebook and Instagram and some of those things have my, you know, business at gunpoint and could shut me down any day. So don't rely on that as your only way of marketing or being online or being in the world. But this is a valuable asset that you've put all this work into, and then in a matter of seconds, it can just all be blown up. So yeah, really interesting today, Desiree. You've got the cogs turning.
Yes, and the online course isn't about, you know, we'll just teach you how to put this in place so that you don't have to worry, and someone can easily access these accounts and do what they need to do. And it's quite easy to do. So yeah, but it's good. It's supposed to get the cogs turning.
Excellent. Excellent. Jeff, you've got your hand up.
No, I was just going to say, it's an excellent idea. One of the things, I just want to share this with the group. A neighbor of mine, a very good friend from many years, played golf with him, what have you. He had a very successful pediatrics business here in the greater Atlanta area. And unfortunately, he developed dementia at a fairly young age. So what happened is some scammers got a hold of him, and he gave the information out regarding his passwords because he didn't know any better, and they took $30,000 plus from him as a result of that. So you really have something there with regard to anyone being diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever. Immediately, their families need to adopt your practices and that, and make sure that no one has access to the accounts of any of these people struggling with those diseases.
Yeah, but their families can only do that if they are named in these accounts in the digital asset clause. No one can do that on their behalf if they're not named as part of the digital asset clause. That's the problem. Everyone thinks that someone else can take care of it. They can't. The law doesn't allow it. It doesn't matter who you hire, how much money you spend. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I highly recommend everybody watch the movie The Beekeeper, the Jason Statham movie that's just come out. It back end shows you how the scammers get in, how they talk to people, and how they end up stealing money from. They in this instance they were doing it with the older generation. I know it happened to my mum last year through an Amazon scam. She only lost $900, but she was in the process of losing her house and all the money in her bank accounts and all Dad's money, like his super that he'd left her, everything. Because she just kept giving them whatever it was they wanted because they spoke really nice to her on the phone. And the only reason she didn't lose everything was because one of her accounts started with a 0, and the person who was putting the thing left the 0 off when he was trying to access her account, and he shut down the account. And he got cranky, not necessarily with her, but with himself, and he sounded angry on the phone, and she said, "I've got to go," and she hung up. And then shut down everything. But she literally took a picture of her driver's license, sent it across, downloaded a thing, and kept saying to him the whole time, "My daughters will kill me if they knew I was doing this. No, we're the bank. We do this all the time. We completely understand, and we understand why your daughters would think to be angry at you, but we do this all the time." And she said she just kept going because they spoke really nice. So yeah, and she'd be less than homeless. So, I mean, we'd look after her, but, you know, she wouldn't have got it back. Pat, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, a couple of things. Just on the end of what you were saying, on YouTube, there's actually whole channels of these guys who actually go out to catch the scammers and how they do it, because they can intercept when it's happening, and then they go and it's usually somebody somewhere in India. But he shows you the whole process of what they do to them. But no, I had this dystopian vision, so it's a bit of an aside, and I know they can deal with it easily, but trying to ring the telco, Optus or Telstra, to try and get some information that's in your husband, you know, it's your husband's name. And if you know when you're trying to actually ring on their behalf or they always need to talk to the account holder. And then they move on to the next department, and before they talk to you, even though you've been verified, you've still got to talk to the account holder. So I've got this vision of, you know, a bit of a YouTube, a comedy sketch basically, of trying to you know, to try to sort this matter out. But I was being told, in, you know, the account holder, the account holder, the account holder, but you can't because you're not the account holder, and the account holder's not
And we see it every day, and this will just get worse. It will be, if you don't have that paper that proves you can act,
Yeah,
you can't. You'll be spinning in circles. Yes.
yeah, absolutely. Alison, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. That was an awesome presentation. And coming off the back of listening to one of the head cybersecurity guys on the weekend who does a lot of things for the Australian government and everything, listening to his presentation about his sister actually getting hacked as well. Something that was a really interesting takeaway was we may all know what to do. He said, but mostly he even said to his sister, he said, what? Even after everything I've told you to do? And she said, oh yeah, I was going to do it. So I think we all need to take action after this. And I know that just say that word to me, password, would cause a mental emotional breakdown most times. And I have like 2 or 3 of those password thingies, and then you know, another password and another. And I always joke, Misty, I leave my finger for my kids when I go, but I've also had a good friend lose a daughter unexpectedly in a car accident, and watched her go through, not being able to close her accounts down and handle things because she wasn't, prepared. There was no will even to start with. So it's something that I think even those of us with children over 18, we don't sort of think about getting them sorted on their own. So
Absolutely.
really great info. And I'm going to book in and fit it in somewhere in my day of life to do this.
Please do. Please
Yes.
do. And I, anyone who has questions, I am available to answer them now and later. This is only a minimal amount of time now, but I'm happy. I'd be happy to answer any more questions.
Excellent. Well, we've got Jeff. Jeff's got his hand up one more time. So
Yes, a quick
last one.
question, actually a couple of questions, Desiree. One, what password manager do you use? Any software? Do you just keep things in notebooks, or what do you do?
Well, that's it. It is a conundrum, and please do not use a notebook. Just to tell you, when I went to England to see my mum, I I borrowed a suitcase, as you do, because I did too much shopping. And when I got back, I opened the outside pocket and I found Mummy's little black book with every password under the sun in it. The lucky thing for her is that I already have all her passwords because I take care of all her stuff, her bookings, her flights, her transfers, whatever. But imagine if someone had to, rummage through that suitcase and found it. There was everything in there. And I said, Mother, please don't do that. Because aside from the fact, if it doesn't get nicked, as it's stolen, it could burn. It gets wet. A lot of things can happen to it. I would not suggest that. I would suggest, and not trying to make a hard sale here, but that course for $386, you get your money's worth and you know what to do. You know exactly what to do. Your second question, Jeff.
Well, the second question is, as far as the course is concerned, who has been most receptive as far as actually signing up and purchasing the course, Desiree?
Those who are actually the younger generations are looking at it, because many of the younger ones are young people, have a lot. We do everything online. I teach at university, and nobody has actually paper and pad. They're all making notes in their phone, and that blew me away, because I'm thinking to myself, what happened to notes? Not even a laptop. They're writing in their phone, making notes, and reading their slides in a phone. They have everything they do is online. They don't go to banks and step into a bank. It wouldn't work for them. Everything is online, and I've found that they actually want to make sure that their parents, and they're all doing business. They all have side hustles, these young people. So they're protecting their assets. They know they're very with it. And the people who are behind are the ones who are perhaps baby boomers, 45 plus, who put it off or think, oh no, it's going to be taken care of. So we're a little bit later and more reticent. When I say we, 45 plus, we're taking our time, thinking we've got all the time. We're the ones, but the younger generation are actually very with it. They actually sign up for it.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Desiree. Thank you for being our speaker today. Thank you, audience, for participating and
Thank you for
being part of
everyone.
the conversation.
Yes.
It's been excellent. Thank you.